Welcome in to the Sunday edition, a really special Sunday edition of the Fun Astrology Podcast. And of course, we are doing this now today on 9/11. Unexpectedly, typically we wouldn't have been here, but commemorating the 21st year since that tragedy on 9/11. Those of you who are of the age, you will remember exactly where you were. And of course, we will never, ever forget. So we've had quite a week. I thought it would be good to lighten things up today and take one listener question today. We'll do another one tomorrow. Before we get to the question today, I wanted to mention that I heard from Stevie McGuire this past week. You might remember we had her on back in February. She is an amazing astrologer and artist who lives up in the Pacific Northwest and does these beautiful, incredible, customized natal chart paintings. And she reached out and wanted to do one for me for my birthday. That was a showstopper. Because I'll tell you, it's like, sometimes you just realize the lives that are touched by all of the things that we all do collectively. But, I just really appreciate Stevie. We've done a reading together, and she's just an incredible woman, and I am so touched by this gift, and I can't wait to share it with you and show it to you. You got to be on our Facebook page, but as soon as it gets here, I'm going to show it off, don't you know? But to make things easier for you to find her, I put her link to her website on funastrology.com. So that will make it easy for you to find. Thank you for letting me just announce that. Sure, her art is great, and if you've got a birthday coming up, holidays are coming up, would be a really cool gift idea. Now, here's a question from a long-time listener.
Hi, Thomas. Anik here. I have a question about how transits hit our natal chart, so to speak. I think I understand pretty well at this point what a square is, an opposition, a sextile, and a trine. But what happens when there's a transit that hits the same degree of, say, like the sign next to the sign where we have a planet? So if my moon is at 7 degrees Aries, what happens if there's an aspect that hits 7 degrees Taurus or 7 degrees Virgo? So I'm just wondering about these like lesser aspects that are not one of the four main ones. Kind of what are they? How do they affect our charts? What happens like if there's an eclipse one sign away at the exact degree of your sun or your moon or your Venus or something like that? How is that likely to affect you, or what is that likely to stir up for you? Thanks so much.
All right, Anik, thank you for a great question. I love this because it takes us in two different directions. One, degrees, and then the other is minor aspects. Now, over on Old Soul, New Soul, Robert did an episode on degrees. He's also written a book on it that is linked in the show notes of Old Soul, New Soul. So I'm not going to repeat all of that here. You can go through and find that episode. I'm not sure when it was released, but just look it up. But that's a whole description of how important the degrees of the planets are. And yes, they are interrelated, and you can cut them in half and look at different ages of things that might happen in your life. You can double, triple, quadruple. So there's a whole explanation over there on that related to the importance correlating to our life of the degrees the planets are in our chart. Also over there, one of the earliest episodes we did was on his rectification technique, which is also all based on the degrees, where you can adjust the midheaven to dial it in to find the exact alignment of correlating degrees to experiences that you've had, particularly in the first 30 years of your life. So yes, if you have an eclipse at 7 degrees, one of the first things you do is look to see if you have any planets in the sign or signs of the eclipse. Then you can look at the degrees. Absolutely. Now that leads us to the second part of her question, which is, what if you have it in a minor aspect area of the chart? So the old Ptolemaic aspects, the one that have been followed through and were only part of ancient astrology, conjunction, opposition, sextile, trine, square. But now in modern astrology, and especially with the advent of software, we have all the minor aspects as well. And the list is extensive. But let me just start with semi-sextile 30 degrees, decile 36 degrees, novile 40 degrees. We're not even halfway through. Semi-square 45, septile 51 and a quarter, then of course sextile at 60, quintile 72, binovile 80, square of course 90, biseptile 102, tridecile 108, trine 120, sesquiquadrate 135, biquintile 144, quincunx 150, triseptile 154.16, quadnovile 160, quindecile 165, and finally, the opposition at 180, where we start the whole thing over, coming back the other way. You see why this only works with computers. Now, this is where you also get into harmonics, and Robert and I are going to be doing an episode on that soon. But in harmonic astrology, you literally can slice that circle to 1 degree, so 1/360th of a circle. Read a chart based on that, and there is interpretive value. As a newbie to astrology, when I first saw harmonics and understood kind of what was being talked about, I realized that we were looking into the subconscious of our soul. So here again, astrology is just like we are. It truly is infinite. So you can take this as far as you want. I do look at some of the minor aspects. I look at the quincunx, of course, a lot because that's one of the structures of a yod. The other place I have seen these minor aspects apply is in financial astrology, especially that technique that I've talked about where you can take the aspects of the day, compare it to the charts of either United States or the S&P 500 index, etc. There are a lot. It's complicated stuff, but you can take that on a daily basis and then you can drill down to the trading hours of the day and literally see reversal points that correlate to these aspects. And I have seen the minor aspects work on that technique as well. Not 100%, but there is enough of a correlation that gets your interest. What I would do is be aware, obviously, of the main Ptolemaic aspects, those anchor aspects that we talked about. Then be aware of the more minor aspects to the point where you can work with or at least interpret or be aware that something is in a place where it might have a direct correlation. Now, you mentioned an eclipse sitting in a next door sign. Yes, at the same degree, that is absolutely worth considering. Is it likely to have as much of an impact as one of the major aspects? Not as likely, but that degree correlation certainly could. So that also is a good segue into tomorrow's question because we're going to be talking about intuition in the chart. Do we interpret and intuit at the same time? Find out about that tomorrow. Have a great rest of the weekend. Love you guys. See ya Monday.